You don't get points in the NFL just for trying hard. That's not how this league works. You don't get a pat on the back for effort. You don't get a moral victory for almost putting together the right roster. And yet, if we're being honest, we know Omar Khan has been out here grinding. No one's questioning his work ethic. No one's doubting his desire to build something real in Pittsburgh. But here's the truth. The clock doesn't stop ticking just because you tried your best. And as of right now, the Steelers are staring down the barrel of the exact same wide receiver problem they had a year ago. Let's just rewind for a second. Last season, the Steelers had George Pickens and, well, that was basically it. No real WR2. No guy you could depend on when defenses zeroed in on George. No one who could stretch the field opposite him, draw coverage, or keep things balanced. And sure enough, when George got hurt, there was nobody left who could even run his routes, let alone replace his impact. The offense shrunk. The margin for error disappeared. And if you watched the games, you saw what happened. It was painful, predictable, frustrating. So heading into this year, there was hope. Real hope. The Steelers went out and made the kind of move that shifts expectations. They brought in DK Metcalf. Yeah, that DK Metcalf. Physical specimen. Deep threat. Red zone monster. The kind of player who changes the entire dynamic of a passing game just by lining up. And for about half a minute, it looked like we were entering a new era. Metcalf on one side, Pickens on the other. Finally, two legit outside weapons. Balance. Explosion. Options. And then, boom. Pickens is gone. Traded. Shipped out. And you know what? That decision made sense in a vacuum. There were locker room issues. There were inconsistencies. A fresh start might have been the right call. But now what? Because here we are, once again, asking the same damn question. Where is WR2? Where is he? How is this even possible again? How does this happen 2 years in a row? I mean, Omar's not blind. He knows. He's not asleep at the wheel. I've talked to people in that building. He's looking. He's been working the phones. He brought in Gabe Davis for a visit. That didn't work out. Gabe wasn't healthy. Ended up signing back with the Bills on their practice squad. So that door closed fast. But let's not act like there haven't been other options. Real names. Talented guys. Trade possibilities. One of the big ones. Terry McLaurin. Yeah, the Steelers looked into that. That's not a rumor. That's real. It didn't go anywhere, but it was on the table, at least for a moment. And that tells you how serious the need was internally. They weren't just browsing. They knew they needed someone. They just didn't close. They didn't pull the trigger. So what do we have now? What's left? Well, right now, the depth chart is something. At WR2, it's probably Calvin Austin. After that, Roman Wilson. Then you're looking at Scotty Miller, Ben Skoranek, a couple of practice squad guys, a handful of receivers that most fan bases couldn't pick out of a lineup. And now the spin begins. Because when you don't have a true WR2, you start hearing about how tight ends are basically receivers too. You hear phrases like positionless football, or schematic flexibility, or multiple formations. That's exactly the tune Mike Tomlin started singing in his last press conference. Tomlin was asked directly about Calvin Austin stepping into that second wideout role. And what did he say? He didn't just say, yeah, Calvin's a guy. He said he's confident in Calvin, sure. But then he pivoted, said he's just as confident in Roman Wilson, in Jonas Smith, in Pat Freiermuth. He even threw Darnell Washington in there. And look, I get it. The Steelers do have a unique situation at tight end. They've got guys who can catch the ball. Jonas Smith isn't your typical inline blocker. He's a yards after catch machine. He had 88 receptions last year in Miami. Let that sink in. 88. More than any receiver on the Dolphins roster. 55 of those catches went for first downs. That's absurd. That's production. And Freiermuth? We know what he is. A big-bodied, sure-handed target who can work the seams and bail out the quarterback on third down. Darnell Washington brings his own upside too, especially in the red zone. So yeah, you can see what Tomlin's talking about. The idea is to use all three of those tight ends interchangeably. Line them up in the slot. Run crossing routes. Mismatch nightmares. It all sounds good in theory. But here's the problem, and it's a big one. None of those guys replace Metcalf. None of them even come close. Because it's not just about catching passes. It's about stretching the field. about drawing double teams, about demanding safety help over the top, about scaring defenses. You can't fake that. You can't substitute that kind of threat with a scheme or a formation. And no one in that tight end room, even with all their talent, has run those Metcalf-type routes their whole lives. They're not WR2s in that sense. There's something different. And listen, no one's saying the Steelers need a second DK Metcalf. That's not realistic. You're not going to find a $150 million receiver sitting around waiting for a phone call. That's not the expectation. What you can find, though, is someone in the mold of what Mike Williams was supposed to be before injuries took their toll. A big target, a guy who can win jump balls, who knows how to operate outside the numbers, who forces defenses to stay honest, who has experience playing that style. That's the void here. And what stings the most is this. It's not like the Steelers couldn't afford to make a move. They got the fifth most cap space in the league right now. Over $20 million available. And that's without restructuring anyone. If they really wanted to, they could free up even more. The money is there. The flexibility is there. But they haven't touched it. They're sitting on it. Now, maybe you do that in a normal year. Maybe you say, you know what? Let's roll this cap over into next season. Let's play it safe. But this isn't a normal year. This is a team that made serious moves all offseason. A team that brought in Metcalf. A team that rebuilt parts of its defense. That invested in its offensive line. A team that made it clear, we're going for something here. We're not just treading water. So if you're going to push the chips in like that, how do you leave this hole wide open? Even worse, if we're being completely honest here, WR2 wasn't even supposed to be the highest priority. Offensive tackle depth was right up there, maybe even higher on the list. And guess what? They didn't address that either. No insurance policy. No proven swing tackle. Nothing. It's like they got 85% of the way through the blueprint and then just stopped, which makes no sense. And look, I'll give credit where it's due. Omar Khan did have a really strong offseason overall. There's no denying that. He added serious talent, real contributors. He got aggressive in the right ways. And I'm not trying to take away from all the good work. But how do you get that close to completing the picture? How do you get to the final few puzzle pieces and then just leave them on the table? It's like buying all the ingredients to make a gourmet dinner, but leaving the main dish half-cooked. Yeah, you can put on the plate. You can dress it up with side dishes and garnishes and fancy sauces. But if the centerpiece of the meal isn't ready, nobody's going to remember anything else. That's how crucial this WR2 situation is. Because in today's NFL, you can't survive with one outside threat. You just can't. Not when defenses are this fast, this complex, this good at adjusting. You need someone to take pressure off your number one. You need someone who can win one-on-one when the coverage rolls away from him. Someone who understands leverage, timing, spacing. This isn't optional. It's fundamental. And before anyone jumps in with, but what about the run game? Yeah, the Steelers want to pound the rock. Sure. But even in the most run-heavy offenses, you need to make defenses respect the passing game. You need to punish them when they stack the box. You need to be able to flip the field in one play when they bite too hard on play action. That doesn't happen unless you've got at least two receivers who scare people. One guy isn't enough. Ask the Titans how that works out. Now, the counter-argument floating around the building is all about versatility. That maybe you don't need a traditional WR2 if you got a bunch of guys who can do a little bit of everything. Calvin Austin gives you speed. Roman Wilson gives you a mix of athleticism and route-running potential. Jonas Smith is a move piece. Freiermuth is your safety net. Darnell Washington brings size and physicality. It sounds good. It does. On paper, that's a lot of options. A lot of flexibility. But here's the catch. Flexibility without a focal point turns into confusion. You end up with players overlapping, roles blurring, assignments getting fuzzy. Instead of having a clear hierarchy and identity, you've got a bunch of guys rotating in and out, none of them really commanding the ball. You know what elite offenses have in common? Clarity. You know where the ball is going on third down. You know who the quarterback trusts in the red zone. You know who's going to draw that safety deep and open up the middle of the field. Right now, the Steelers have DK Metcalf and then a shrug. And you don't win playoff games with a shrug. Let's talk about the quarterback for a second. Because no matter who's under center this season, And that's a conversation in itself. They're going to need help. Real help. Not just a quick outlet. Not just a trick play option. They need a guy they can throw a 50-50 ball to and feel confident it won't be a wasted down. They need someone they can trust on the sideline in tight coverage. Because if your quarterback doesn't believe in his weapons, he gets conservative. He takes the checkdowns. He holds onto the ball too long. He second-guesses throws. That's how drives stall. That's how sacks pile up. That's how turnovers creep in. A reliable WR2 is a quarterback's safety blanket just as much as a running back or tight end is. And right now, you've got young receivers who are still finding themselves. Calvin Austin is electric, but he hasn't put together a full, healthy season. Roman Wilson has never played an NFL snap. Scotty Miller is a gadget guy, not a down-and-down answer. Ben Skowronek is a role player. These aren't excuses, they're just facts. You don't build a passing game on wishful thinking. You build it on players with track records. Players who can handle pressure. Players who don't disappear when the coverage gets tight or the game is on the line. Let's go back to Jonnu Smith for a second. Again, 88 catches. 55 first downs. That's nuts. That's production at a high level. But even with that resume, you're asking a lot if your plan is to lean on tight and to carry your passing game. Because defenses will adjust. They'll clog the middle. They'll bump your tight ends at the line and force your outside guys to win. And when that happens, you better have someone out there who can win. Because if you don't, the offense turns into a grind. A 12-play slog just to get into field goal range. You're not flipping games with those drives. You're surviving. You're not scaring anyone. And in today's NFL, if you're not scaring defenses, you're losing. Now, if you listen to what Tomlin said, he doesn't sound worried. He talks about schematics and unique depth and all the ways this offense can come at you from different directions. That's fine. Coaches always talk like that. But when the season starts and the coverage is tightened and the blitzes come and the game speeds up, all those fancy words go out the window if the talent on the outside isn't there. And again, the part that really drives people crazy, they had the cap space to fix this. They still do. They have over $20 million just sitting there. That's not a back-against-the-wall situation. That's not. We tried, but we couldn't make the numbers work. That's a choice. A strategic decision not to act. And that's where the frustration comes in. Because if you're all in, you don't leave yourself this exposed. If you believe this team can make a run, you don't go into the season with a glaring hole at a premium position. It's not like there haven't been chances. Guys have been available. Some are still available. Trades are possible. Veteran signings are sitting out there. This team doesn't need a superstar. They just need someone dependable. Someone who's done it before. Someone who lets the offense breathe. That player exists. That player might cost you a mid-round pick or a chunk of your cap. But so what? What are you saving it for? You already made the bold move for Metcalf. You already shook up the locker room with the Pickens trade. You already told the world you're building something different. So finish it. You know what the scariest part of all this is? If something happens to Metcalf, a minor injury, a few games off, this offense immediately reverts back to what it was last season. Limited. Predictable. Easy to defend. That's the risk they're taking. That's the bet they've placed. And maybe it works out. Maybe someone like Roman Wilson surprises everyone. Maybe Calvin Austin stays healthy and explodes. Maybe Scotty Miller becomes the next big slot story. But maybe not. Because it's not just about having weapons. It's about having the right weapons. The ones who show up when it counts. The ones who change games. The ones who make a good team great. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on. The NFL world is buzzing with one of the most unexpected moves of the season as Anthony Richardson, the young and electric quarterback whose name has been on everyone's lips since his college days, has reportedly signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. This development has sent shockwaves through sports media, fan communities, and even rival teams, igniting a frenzy of speculation about the team's future strategies and how Richardson's arrival could redefine the Steelers' offensive identity. Rumors have been circulating for weeks about potential trades and free agent pickups, but few could have predicted that a player of Richardson's caliber, whose skill set combines both arm strength and unprecedented mobility, would end up in Pittsburgh, a city renowned for its football legacy and passionate fan base. Analysts are now debating how the Steelers' coaching staff, led by a quarterback guru with a history of maximizing talent, will integrate Richardson into their existing system, especially given the team's traditional style of play that has long emphasized disciplined pocket passing and a strong running game. Speculation is rife that Richardson's presence could spark a paradigm shift, forcing both teammates and opponents to adjust their strategies, while fans eagerly anticipate whether his rookie-like dynamism will translate immediately into wins, or if the adjustment period could produce surprising challenges. Adding fuel to the fire, whispers from inside the Steelers organization suggest that Richardson's contract comes with a level of investment and expectation rarely seen for a player entering the league, signaling a commitment to long-term planning that goes beyond immediate performance metrics. Sources familiar with the negotiations hint that behind-the-scenes discussions involved not only salary considerations, but also clauses tied to performance bonuses, marketing partnerships, and even potential media obligations, highlighting the multifaceted impact of Richardson's presence both on and off the field. The Steelers' front office appears to have made a calculated risk, betting that Richardson's athletic versatility, football IQ, and charisma will elevate the franchise into a new era of relevance and excitement. Meanwhile, rival franchises are reportedly scrambling to re-evaluate their defensive schemes, knowing that containing Richardson's dual-threat capabilities could prove more complex than preparing for traditional pocket passers. Pundits have begun comparing this move to past transformative signings, suggesting that Pittsburgh may be positioning itself not only as a contender, but also as a trendsetter in the modern NFL landscape, where dynamic quarterbacks redefine how offenses are structured and games are approached from week to week. Fans and commentators alike are engaging in heated debates over whether Richardson's signature on a Steelers jersey represents a bold statement of intent or a gamble that could backfire under intense scrutiny. The city of Pittsburgh, with its history of legendary quarterbacks, is suddenly facing the prospect of welcoming a player whose raw talent is as undeniable as it is unpredictable, prompting local sports bars, forums, and social media threads to overflow with both excitement and anxiety. While some supporters hail Richardson as the missing piece capable of reigniting the franchise's Super Bowl ambitions, skeptics caution that high expectations could become a double-edged sword, placing immense pressure on a young player still adapting to the professional game. In parallel, merchandise sales, ticket inquiries, and fan engagement metrics reportedly spiked immediately after the announcement, indicating that the move has already had a tangible economic and cultural impact on the Steelers ecosystem. Analysts speculate that Richardson's presence may also influence draft priorities, training camp rotations, and coaching decisions, as the team recalibrates around a quarterback who promises unpredictability, speed, and a new level of excitement that could either reinvigorate the Steelers' fan base or expose vulnerabilities if not managed carefully over the course of the season. The ripple effects of Richardson's signing extend beyond Pittsburgh, with media outlets across the country attempting to piece together the implications for the AFC landscape, rival coaching strategies, and the broader narrative of quarterback development in the NFL. Industry insiders are noting that Richardson's blend of athleticism and improvisational skill could force opposing defenses to rethink conventional approaches, potentially inspiring a wave of tactical innovations in both short-term game planning and long-term roster construction. Meanwhile, league analysts are dissecting every available clip of Richardson from his college career, debating how his unique tendencies might align with Pittsburgh's historically conservative offensive philosophy. Some experts suggest that the Steelers' acquisition may prompt a broader reevaluation of talent evaluation methods, as teams weigh the value of raw physical gifts against refined technical experience. Rumors also persist that Richardson's signing may influence free agent decisions, coaching hires, and even trade discussions across the league, as teams attempt to anticipate how Pittsburgh's newfound firepower could alter competitive dynamics. The ongoing speculation has transformed the off-season chatter into something approaching a media frenzy, with fans and professionals alike waiting to see whether this controversial and high-profile signing will be remembered as a stroke of genius, a calculated risk, or a cautionary tale in NFL history. Ultimately, the Anthony Richardson Steelers story encapsulates the unpredictable nature of professional football, where a single decision can reverberate across an entire league and reshape the expectations of players, coaches, and fans alike. While concrete outcomes remain uncertain, the signing has already achieved what few moves can. It has dominated headlines, fueled intense debate, and injected a renewed sense of anticipation into the NFL landscape. Pittsburgh's storied franchise now finds itself at the center of a whirlwind of rumor, analysis, and speculation, as the city braces for a season that could redefine its football identity and test Richardson's ability to perform under relentless scrutiny. Whether this move ultimately delivers championship success or becomes a cautionary example of hype meeting reality, it has undeniably captured the imagination of the football world and underscored the inherent drama of sports, where talent, strategy, and risk intersect in ways that are impossible to predict. As training camps open and the season approaches, all eyes will be on Richardson and the Steelers, with fans, analysts, and rivals alike eagerly anticipating the next chapter in one of the most talked-about stories of the year, proving that in the NFL, even a single signing can ignite speculation that feels larger than life. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.